I'm not liking 90 Day Fiancé Season 11 couple, Greg Chillak and Joan Kruchov, as their behavior and attitudes are rubbing me the wrong way, but I fear they may be cast in the franchise again. 90 Day Fiancé Season 11 is more than halfway through the season, and Greg and Joan have gotten a lot of screen time as their wedding day approaches. Joan is originally from Kampala, Uganda, she and Long Island, New York. Native Greg met when Greg was traveling in Uganda. They had an initial spark that led to more after they reconnected on social media. Greg was a 35-year-old part-time baker who, admittedly, never held down a real job when he entered the franchise. And 27-year-old Joan abandoned her NGO director job to come to America and be with Greg. I've noticed several red flags between the pair. Video game addicted Greg had turned down a good state job opportunity, while Joan was full of unhealthy ultimatums. The pair don't seem to function in an adult relationship well, as they rely on Greg's mother, Lucille, a lot, and their treatment of her irks me. Greg lives in his mother's house, and before Joan arrived, Lucille did everything for Greg. Between picking up after him, cleaning, and encouraging him, Greg depended on his mother for full support. Once Joan came to America, she, too, relied on Lucille. Greg does have dreams of buying his own house one day, but he is completely unrealistic, as is Joan. Joan wants the timeline to move out to be 6 months, but Greg knows he won't have the funds by then. Moreover, Greg won't compromise and move into an apartment, which I find annoying. Greg and Joan are going to continue to need to rely on Lucille while they figure out their logistical steps. Greg can't function without the help and support of his mom. While I think it's great they share a close bond, I think Joan and Greg are taking advantage of her since they don't seem to appreciate all that she provides. Lucille gave Greg and Joan a roof over their heads only for Joan to turn around and tell Lucille that she was in her own home too much and should go out more. Why would she say something like that? I have been very accommodating to them, so that sends off signals that maybe she isn't an appreciative person. I do acknowledge that Joan has been doing some of the house chores, unlike Greg, but her comment towards Lucille I felt was super out of line. Then, Joan asked Lucille to drive her to her wedding dress fitting, and Lucille thought she would be part of the experience. But Joan didn't want Lucille to come, and she instead had a video call with her family. It hurt Lucille's feelings again. I don't think Joan should be so harsh and dismissive of Lucille, given all she's doing for her. Lucille wants to be a good mother-in-law, but Joan is making it hard. Meanwhile, Greg is contributing nothing and not helping mend or grow the relationship between his mom and his fiancé, which I find utterly distasteful. 90 Day Fiancé's Greg and Joan do have an inflammatory storyline and circumstances, which usually bodes well for couples who have tended to return to the franchise after their initial appearances. However, I don't think they are interesting enough to merit an entire follow-up narrative on the Happily Ever After spin-off. Were they to be selected to appear again, I think the catch-up self-filmed spin-off 90 Day Diaries would be better suited for them, although I wish they would just fade away into 90 Day Fiancé history.